So my name is Dirk Vansintjan. That's a Dutch sounding name. I'm from the Dutch speaking part of Belgium, the north of Belgium. In the photograph, you see me with my thumb out of my mouth. I'm not only a Germanic philologist, but I was also from when I was a teenager, an activist against nuclear power, against nuclear missiles. And here on this photograph, you see us surrounding a military base of the Americans in Belgium, where they installed nuclear missiles, and we didn't agree. This was also the time that the Green Party of Flanders was founded, and I'm also one of the founders of the Green Party of Flanders. I was 17 at that time. By coincidence, I became involved in renewable energy, although I'm an ecologist, let's say, but after my studies, I thought of becoming an organic farmer, and we didn't find a farm, but we found a water mill. Later on, you will see a photograph of this mill. And to raise money to finance the renovation of the turbine, we created, in 1991, we created a cooperative. It was my friend with the long hair and the dark glasses there, who is an accountant, who told me this was the best way to organize ourselves. And by the way, he now lives in Canada and started an energy cooperative there as well. So we started with a few people around the table, just like this evening. Yeah? And now, many years later, almost 30 years later, we have about 60,000 members. And Ecopower supplies 1.7% of the Flemish households with their own green electricity. You will notice I won't speak a lot about Belgium. Why is this? Well, in Belgium, the renewable energy is a competence of the regional governments. So it means Flanders, Brussels, and Wallonia. There are different laws and in these three parts of the country. So renewable energy is regulated on the Flemish level. What is Belgian level? It's offshore wind and high tension lines and nuclear power. And so that's at the Belgian level. So after a few years, we started noticing we were not alone as an energy cooperative. And in fact, this led to the fact that we created the European Federation in 2013. And for Ecopower, I'm since the foundation of the European Federation, I'm acting as the president of this federation. So maybe you all know, but what is a cooperative? And you see a nice picture of the founders of the Rochdale pioneers, of the founders of the English or British cooperative family. You notice it's all men, and well, they made a picture, which is it's more than 150 years ago. So cooperatives are enterprises, but they are people-centered. They are owned and controlled and run by and for their members to realize their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations. There are 7 principles attached to it, and one of these principles is that cooperatives are autonomous entities. And yes, you're from Romania, so you have decades of communist rule behind you. And what happened during the communist rule in Eastern Europe is that the Communist Party put their people on top of every cooperative, that probably already existed before communism came to the country. And this is something which is against the cooperative principles. A cooperative can't be controlled by a political party or can't be controlled by a government and a municipality. No, it's something that is bottom up, created by people. You can't force people to become a member of a cooperative. You can't prevent them from going out. And this is what went wrong in the former communist countries. But also in Greece, for instance, whenever the government switched from left to right, they always put their people on top of every cooperative. So this is something we must rule out radically. That is that a cooperative is controlled only by the people who created it. So it's a democratic way of doing, of running an enterprise. And typically the best way that illustrates this is that in most cooperatives, one member has one vote regardless of the number of shares they have. So in the normal, let's say, capitalistic economy, this is something which they don't believe. But this is typically for cooperatives. There are quite some cooperatives worldwide. There are more than 3 million cooperatives worldwide, and I don't know why this is here. Okay, whoop. Oh, that's the next slide. I don't know how it comes, but so about 12% of the human population is a member of a cooperative, and they account for 10% of the jobs. They are organized internationally in the International Cooperative Alliance. That's an organization that is also more than a century old. And in Europe, there is the European branch of the International Cooperative Alliance, which is Cooperatives Europe. It's not that old. It was created about 15 years ago, I think. So what is an energy cooperative? We've been explaining this over the past few years when Europe started, the European Commission started revising its directives on energy. We had to explain a lot what energy cooperatives were doing and what now is called energy communities. It's not a technical concept. It's not just something microgrid or auto-consumption or something, or energy islands. No, it's something else. It's not restricted to specific legal form. So even among the members of our federation, there are other legal entities like not-for-profit organizations, so trusts, and specific legal entities like in the UK, you have several of them. So we had to tell the Commission, no, don't put cooperative in your new directives, but put there something neutral, also thinking of the problem we have in Eastern Europe with cooperatives that are connotated with communism. So it's also not just a way of financing energy transition projects, a sort of crowdfunding of projects. No, it's about democratizing our energy system. It's about taking ownership by citizens of the energy transition. It's about inclusiveness. We don't want to leave poor people behind. And it's about making sure that people can share in the profits that renewables bring. And this sounds sometimes strange to people, but if you see this in this perspective of all the money leaving the country for buying oil and gas and coal or uranium, and when this money stays in because you turn to your own renewables and you become more energy efficient, well, this money doesn't leave anymore, but it starts accumulating. So it's about that kind of money that we're talking about. So there are groups of citizens who cooperate on energy transition projects and who also subscribe our REScoop.eu charter. And when you look at our website and look at the charter, you will notice that all the 7 cooperative principles are in it, but we added some things around climate change and things like that. So the projects they engage in, it's quite diverse. So it's about production of renewable energy. Sometimes it's about supplying energy, the distribution. They work around flexibility, storage, and demand response. It's about energy savings, energy efficiency. It's about district heating and cooling. And quite new is also quite some cooperatives are created around electrical car or electrical vehicle sharing. And the photograph is of our General Assembly of Ecopower a few years ago. Not all 60,000 come, but luckily, otherwise there's not a stadium, a football stadium large enough in Belgium to host 60,000 people. So in an historic perspective, where do these energy cooperatives situate themselves? Well, at the right-hand side, you see this picture. That's the mill where Ecopower was founded. It's on the river Dijle, a 75 kilowatt turbine from 1902 that we renovated, and since then it produces again green electricity between 400,000 and 500,000 kilowatt hours a year. It's also a co-housing project, and we started in '85, and now I have gray hair. It seems we are pioneers in renewable energy, but also in co-housing. We didn't know what co-housing was when we started this project, but why do I show this picture? Well, often in Europe, the production of electricity started with mills like this, water mills like this, small hydropower stations. Sometimes it was a factory with a steam engine or a diesel engine, and they started producing electricity. It was very decentralized. There was no national grid. Typically, the cities became, they got electricity already around the First World War, or even before the end of the 1800s. But the rural areas, their electricity came later between the 2 world wars, or even later. So it started very decentralized. And to give you an idea, in Germany, until the Second World War, there were more than 6,000 energy cooperatives. So they were mainly cooperatives that installed the distribution lines in the rural areas, remote areas, mountainous areas. There was no profit to be made, so private investors, they concentrated on the cities where there were a lot of customers, where the electricity lines would give them a return on investment. But the rural areas, their people had to do it themselves, so they organized either in cooperatives or the municipality took initiative and it became public utilities. So it's also the time of the windmills. And then everything got centralized, especially after the Second World War. It was nationalized often in Eastern Europe or even in France, or there were private monopolies, like in Belgium, we had private monopolies. And then now, due to the advance of technology and also so the internet and things like that, remote control, we see a decentralization again. So the production comes very close to every citizen, solar panels on your roof, maybe a battery soon, or an electrical car that can play a role. And so this is a unique chance. So it comes so close to the citizens that we can invest in it ourselves and take ownership of this decentralized production. And that's where the energy cooperatives play a significant role. So there have been energy cooperatives since the very beginning of the electrification of Europe, like Ewerk-Pratt, for instance. They're more than a century old. They're from the north of Italy, the former, the German-speaking part of Italy. It used to be Austria before the First World War, and they are more than a century old. And they survived the Second World War. They survived nationalization under the fascist government, and later. So it's also remote mountainous areas. So the Italians didn't bring them electricity, so they did it themselves. There are about 80 of them in the north of Italy, and they have a sort of federation, Rolul Energie Verein. And they work very well together on technical aspects, and they have smart grids, they have smart meters. They're as advanced as the people in Denmark are, as the electricity system in Denmark is. Often cooperatives are a reaction to a need. So the private companies didn't bring electricity to the rural area, so people wanted it, so they did it themselves. In the 1970s, we had the first crisis of the oil crisis in '73. I remember I was 14. This meant that the school, they couldn't heat the school buildings anymore. We were sent home when it was too cold. In Denmark, the government planned nuclear power plants, but people opposed. And this school, Twint, in the early '70s, they built a huge wind turbine. It was a 1.5 megawatt wind turbine with a concrete tower. It still functions, and people did everything themselves. They dug the foundations. They pulled they made the blades of the turbine, and so. And a few years ago, they painted it like the rocket of Tintin, which is a Belgian cartoon. So in fact, it was the start of the Danish industry of making wind turbines. So it was an action of people, a school, the teachers, the pupils, the parents who did this together. In Germany, after Chernobyl, a lot of energy cooperatives were created because people wanted to get rid of nuclear power. And this is a photograph of Schönau, where the people took back control of their grid, and they are now a supplier of green energy all over Germany. And also after Fukushima, a lot of cooperatives were created, and now with climate change, which is imminent, we see that there is a real wave of new initiatives across Europe. We don't have a complete overview of how many there are on our website. Energy communities can put themselves on our map. Luckily, all of them didn't do it, because otherwise you wouldn't see the map anymore, except for Eastern Europe, where there are only a few. You see, it's more something of Northwestern Europe than Southern Europe, and it's more something of Northwestern Europe than Eastern Europe. So this remains challenging. How can we spread the model, which is advantageous for citizens, also in Eastern Europe and the Balkan region? So our federation was created in end 2013. Gijsbert Heink was also one of the founders for some Energia. We now represent almost half of these energy cooperatives. About 1,500 are direct members or indirect members because they belong to a national federation, like the German cooperatives. There are about 870, I think. They're all member of DGRV, which is the umbrella organization of all cooperatives. So they represent the German cooperatives in our federation. So the main objectives of our federation are to ensure that the voices of citizens and energy cooperatives are heard in the energy policy debates at the European level. We want to foster the international collaboration between our members. We want them to grow and prosper, and we want to promote the cooperative model across the whole of Europe. And the possibilities, they are in this energy transition. They are enormous. So we ordered a study together with some other organizations like Greenpeace Europe and Friends of the Earth Europe and RF and CE Delft, which is a study group around energy. They made this study for us. And by 2050, when we should be climate neutral in Europe, 264 million Europeans could contribute to this energy transition, either by producing their own electricity at home or in cooperatives. So this is how this study group evaluated what was possible. So 23% of the electricity could be done by households at home, and 37% of the electricity we need then. And in 2050, a lot more will be electrified. 37% could be done by collectively in cooperatives. So this is a bit the image we give. So we're all small energy consumers, and now if we take this chance of the decentralization of the energy transition, of getting the ownership, we will together we will be strong and scare away this big energy fish. Yeah. So actually, we position ourselves as a third market player. So traditionally, and I'm sorry for the Dutch, it was a photograph I took somewhere, so I stole this picture. There is a copyright, don't tell anyone. It's a Dutch organization. And typically there are two players. You have the private partners, the market parties, the private investors, and the public, the authorities, local authorities, national authorities, regional authorities. And actually, we as energy cooperatives, we have aspects of both of them. So our aim is not profit. It's nice to have profit, but that's not the aim. For instance, the aim of Ecopower is to provide our members with green electricity from their own country at the lowest possible price. So that's, is this profit? Not really. So we have aspects of a government, but we also, of course, we are businesses, so we'll have also aspects of enterprises. And we say, well, from this traditional dual system between private and public, actually now there are three players. It's not football anymore, it's something else. So what are the benefits we can offer to citizens and to society as a whole? We notice that when projects are set up with citizens, together with citizens, from the very beginning of a project ID, that this fosters, that this advances the social acceptance. So when a foreign company all at once puts some wind turbines near your village, people have a tendency, and it doesn't bring them anything or not a lot, they have the tendency to oppose. So the picture you see is the city of Eeklo, where Ecopower now has 5 wind turbines. The plan of where the wind turbines could come was made by the council together with a lot of citizens. So they made their own energy transition plan already at the end of the 90s. And all the yellow pins are members of Ecopower now. So they're everywhere. Everyone knows someone who is a shareholder of Ecopower. So it's about keeping the individual investment and the energy bills affordable. We share the profits with the members and the larger community. So Ecopower also engages in investments to help the city consume less in their building, for instance. It's about building a sense of community. So it's about retaining the money that otherwise flows out of the community to keep it locally. And it gives, once the money accumulates in the community, people start doing sensible things with it. Not only energy projects, but it might, I will give some examples later. So, yeah, maybe we can stop here for a moment, and maybe there are some questions. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. If you have questions, you can send them. What I liked from what you said in other presentations is when you said that renewables are, after all, common goods that everybody has and everybody should have access to.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
So according to us, the wind, and that's a problem we have here in Belgium. Here, the wind is the property of someone who has a piece of land.
Okay.
And when you think about it, here in Belgium, you can see on the photograph, there are no large agricultural pieces. It's all because in our heritage, when people inherit, they cut up pieces of land for all their children. Yeah? So it's all small pieces of agricultural land. And so if you put a wind turbine on one piece of land, the neighbor, he can't do the same. Actually, you expropriate the neighbor from the wind. And this shows that actually the wind is a common good. It doesn't belong to anyone, but it should be at the use of everyone. It's the same with drinking water, for instance. So
yeah, true.
So you can't privatize the sun. So no, you can't privatize the wind. So it's a common good. So what we ask in Flanders, for instance, is that the Flemish government, that they decide that besides a building permit and an environmental permit, you also need an exploitation permit, in which the government can say, well, you can exploit the wind, but you have to share for a certain percentage with everyone living around it. And we ask for 50%. We don't want 100%, but we ask a fair share of 50%. Mm-hmm. And in the Netherlands, now with the new directives and the climate agreement, they have obtained this. So it's not utopical to ask this. So it's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question we got is that someone noticed that there are a few energy cooperatives out in the Eastern Europe, and asked what is the plan of REScoop in order to promote that, to promote energy cooperatives in Eastern Europe.
So we managed to have partners in every member state. It's mainly organizations. There might be environmental organizations. There might be organizations, energy agencies that want to promote the model. Sometimes it's also organizations that promote democracy as a concept. So in every member state, we have organizations that want to make the movement grow there. And we try now with the transposition of the new directives, we involve them and they are active so that the transposition is done in a good way, so that at least in the legal framework, the possibility of creating energy communities is there in a good way. Yeah. We think that collaboration with municipalities is important. So we are very close to the networks, the existing networks of municipalities and cities in Europe, ICLE, Climate Alliance, and Energy Cities. And we think that by convincing municipalities that when they activate their citizens to help them in the energy transition, that's the way to go. So the problem seems that with the disappearance of the Communist Party, a lot of organizations also disappeared, which the average Dane, for instance, is member of 13 organizations. I myself, I'm member of at least 7 organizations. So it's volunteer organizations. So you have a whole, people are used to cooperate in Western Europe. Let's say Northwestern Europe. The more you go to the south, the less it is. Yeah. So it has something to do with history, culture a bit. So of course, municipalities, they're there. They're the closest level to the citizens, and we think that's probably the way to go. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there aren't any more questions, I think we can go further.
Okay. So in the next chapter, it's about the activities and business models. So most of the energy cooperatives, they start producing renewable energy. Most of them start with small PV installations, but some engage into wind energy as well. These are some examples of them. There are 2 Dutch, Delta Wind and Zeewind. They just completed a large wind farm that costed 240 million euro. That's the biggest cooperative wind farm there is in the world, I think. So So, and they have only 5,000 members. So it's possible to have big projects as well. But most of them work with volunteers and are quite small, have dozens of members, a few hundreds of members, and engage into the smaller projects. So some are suppliers of renewable energy, like my own cooperative, Ecopower, but we're a producer and a supplier. They come next. But for instance, Enercoop in France, they just supply their members with green electricity. Cooperative in the French part of Belgium, it's a cooperative of cooperatives, and they only supply energy. Then you have the producer suppliers like Energia and Ecopower, my own cooperative. Typically they have a lot of members because when the price is good, the tariff is good, people come for the low price, and then they discover it's green and that you can share in the profits. So then the story becomes even nicer. But that's how they grow. So Energia now has about even more members than Ecopower. But of course, Spain is bigger than Flanders. So some own the distribution grid. I told you about the ones in the north of Italy, but there are also distribution system operators in Germany, in Portugal, in Spain, and in Denmark. Most of the distribution system operators in Denmark are cooperatives. And some of them are old, very old, some of them are new. There are also cooperatives that focus on helping their members consume less. So it's they do energy monitoring, they give advice, and that's also an activity some cooperatives do. Sometimes they combine this with other activities. And sometimes there's a sort of gaming, do better than your neighbors. So it seems this works. Typically, it's also that cooperatives, they provide a lot of information to their members. And this is an invoice from Energia, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, from Energia. And so they, by giving information about the consumption, people get more aware of their consumption. And what happens then, and this is we discovered that this is the case in all energy cooperatives that are a supplier. The consumption of energy goes down every year. So the average consumption of the Ecopower household is half of what the average consumption of a normal Flemish household is. So this is quite impressive. And every year it goes down, partly due to the fact that people install solar panels, but even the members who don't install solar panels, their consumption is considerably, significantly lower than the ones that are not a member. So quite a lot of energy cooperatives also engage in helping their members to insulate their homes, to consume less. This is also a service Ecopower is offering its members now. Some specialize in training people to consume less. These are some examples from France and from the UK. Also Ecopower, in autumn we have 10 sessions where we inform people about what new things what are going on. So we've been discussing, for instance, is it already the time to add a battery, a home battery to your PV, to your photovoltaic installation? So no, it was too early. Maybe next year it will be the case. So that's education of the members. Some help public authorities, for instance, in the city of Halle, the city where I was born, the local energy cooperative, they financed the relighting of the public street lighting to LED. And so people could adopt the light near their house, for instance. And so they raised the money and the city was able to speed up the LED lighting of the city. And now the new things, the high tension system operators who are also responsible for seeing that the whole electricity network, the electricity system stays in balance. They're very much interested in the flexibility we as citizens could offer together for keeping the networks stable. Now this is only in theory. But energy cooperatives, by combining all these citizens, they together can offer flexibility. So we could install neighborhood batteries. We could use our electrical cars to stabilize the network. We are engaged in several test sites and European projects where this citizen virtual power plant is being tested. We just started a new European project called REScoop virtual power plant, where we, as a federation, together with our members, will get more experience in what role our members could take up. So we always engage in these projects when it leads to a tool that can help our members and that they can use. So heating, cooling, more and more, we see more and more district heating in Belgium as well. Also my own cooperative, Ecopower, we are investing in 2 heat networks. We also produce wood pellets from locally sourced pine wood. So that's also an activity. And then transport, electrical car sharing. We created a European cooperative that is owner of the app behind the car sharing. And instead that every cooperative is making its own app, we are now having a very good app that we share at the European level. So whenever you want to start with electrical car sharing, you just become a member of the mobility factory, and then you can start using the app and start immediately with car sharing. So this was more or less an oversight of the activities, and maybe some questions now. Then I'll have the last part of my presentation.
There was a question on the chat. What were the success factors in Belgium for Ecopower that turned it into such a big thing?
Well, we had our first wind turbines in 2001, and we grew from 30 members from the hydropower station to 1,200 members. And then due to European legislation, the energy market was liberalized, was made free. And so the monopoly was broken, and new suppliers could turn up on the market. And in our General Assembly, our members decided that we would become a supplier. We as a board, we didn't know anything about it. We didn't have personnel at that time. And so we started very cautiously with 10 clients. It was ourselves and someone from the municipality, someone from the ministry, and someone from the cabinet of the Minister of Energy, because the cabinet of the Minister of Energy at that time, they came to us and they said, you have to become a supplier. We need new suppliers, because otherwise this liberalization doesn't lead to anything. So we did it. And because we didn't take profits, we were the cheapest electricity supplier on the market. So since then, we have never made publicity, and we had a constant stream of new members. So for instance, last year, there were about 3,000 new members. And on average, they bring about €1,000 to the cooperative as shares. However, 75% only have one share of €250. So there are some people bring more money. So these people are really convinced of the model, and they bring a few €1,000, which compensate for the ones with one share. And so I think the key of having a lot of members is that you are a producer and a supplier. It makes the story nice. So you produce it together. It's even cheaper than putting solar panels on your roof. For the average Ecopower member has €1,000 in cooperative. For €1,000, you don't have solar panels on your roof. So actually, the cooperative is a cheaper way, is a better way for people with not a lot of money to have green electricity anyway from their own country.
Thank you very much.
I continue?
Yeah, I think it's okay if you continue.
So when you look at the different ways of financing, you will see that in every country there's a different legal system, a different fiscal system, and traditions, and so people adapt. So you can't compare how Dutch cooperatives do projects with how Belgian cooperatives do projects, although we are a neighboring country. So there are different, you could say, crowdfunding categories. So there's donations, loan, and equity. And you will see that when we're talking about cooperatives, it's more about equity. And yes, we work with loans, but not with donations. But crowdfunding, sometimes it's about donations. So, new thing is green bonds, but I won't go into detail here. Typically is that you see in energy cooperatives, you see on the balance sheet, you see that there's quite a lot of equity, and that you can see it on that the assets are owned by the cooperative. There are other there are big utilities in Belgium, for instance, who created a cooperative to let people participate in their project, but these cooperatives, they give a subordinated loan to the big company. They actually don't need it, but that's the way to try to have the support of the neighbors. So actually we prefer that the projects are financed with equity rather than with the other ways of financing. So to give you the example of Ecopower, that's the logo of Ecopower. So you have citizens and you have Ecopower, and the money from the citizens goes to Ecopower in shares. So we have about 60 million euro of equity, I think now. So we buy a wind turbine. The electricity goes to the members. And there's also a dividend going to the members. So the electricity, we don't take profit. So it's rather, normally it's cheaper than the others. And when there's a profit, the profit is returned to the members as a dividend. This is the example of the big developer, Electrawinds. They are bankrupt, by the way, now. So they created the financial cooperative. So the money goes from the citizens to the financial cooperative. There are shares, and they give a subordinated loan to the mother company, which controls the cooperative actually in the board. They also buy a wind turbine. The electricity goes to the members, but through the market players. So there's no discount. There's an interest on the loan, which goes to the cooperative, and then there's a dividend going to the members. But when you look at this, the participation is very small, maybe 5% or 10% in the actual investment through this subordinated loan. Actually, this is a way we don't support at all. Yeah.
It's basically a fake cooperative.
Yeah, we call it a facade cooperative. Yeah.
Yeah.
According to the Belgian legislation, there's no difference between them and us. Yeah? We try to do something about it, but I told you that this was an example from Belgium. In the Netherlands, you become a member for 10 euro of an energy cooperative, and on this share you get a dividend, very small. But then once you're a member, you give a loan to your cooperative. It's also a sort of subordinated loan, but from the member to the cooperative, and there you get an interest. The interest is agreed. You can also have the electricity. But why is this in the Netherlands? Because my colleagues are calling me, because this loan is, you can deduct it from your taxes. So it's a very interesting it's very interesting for citizens to give these loans. And in the Netherlands, a cooperative can have an indefinite number of loans from their members. In Belgium, we can only have 39. When we have 40, we must have a bank license. So it's two neighboring countries, but a completely different situation. So I don't know how it is in Romania, but I suppose it's different. So
this mechanism, sorry, Dirk, to intervene.
Yeah.
This mechanism looks like ours. I mean, we are now preparing this system to work.
Yeah. So it depends on the legislation.
We don't have this kind of restrictions regarding the number of loans. So regardless of the number, the members of the cooperative can, if they want, finance the cooperative.
It is also the way some energy works, for instance.
Exactly,
so
the same way.
In Belgium, it's not possible, but in some countries, that's the way to go. So you find the way, you adapt to the circumstances. So some of the cooperatives, when they have a project, they launch a project-specific share offer, like in our country, in Flanders, Beauvais, it's our colleagues. But Ecopower, since we have a constant income of new members and their money, we never have a call. There's no share offer. The money comes in anyway. Also, some Energia works with share offers. Energy for All, the Energy for All cooperatives in the UK, they work with share offers. Sometimes a cooperative like Ecopower, it's only one legal entity that owns all the projects, but in other countries, it's better for every project to create a separate special purpose cooperative. Like Energy for All, every project is another cooperative.
Like an SPV, yes.
Yeah, an SPV, yeah. So the return on investment, there's a variety of possibilities. It could be a regular dividend. In Germany, we have a very interesting example of a small city where the football club was going in a higher league, but then they had to install a roof above the supporters. They couldn't afford it, but the energy cooperative did the investment and put solar panels on it, and the return for the members was a seasonal ticket or sausages. In every match, they got a sausage. So that's also sort of dividend, or yeah. You could have a lower energy price, a ristorno. Sometimes they have they put the part of the profit in a charity, and they do things with the money in their community. It could be investments in public buildings, in schools, or they could fight energy poverty. That's typically UK, where most of the profits go to the community or what happens in the community as a whole. So when you're doing big projects, of course, the financing project like this is a challenge. This big project of these two Dutch cooperatives I talked about, 240 million euro, was made possible because the wind turbine manufacturer said, well, we'll take half and we'll bring our financial partner and insurance company. But finally, they raised enough money to take back the 50% of Enercon. What we are also studying we also created a European fund, but it's not operational yet, as you might have noticed, because we got also a request from you. Sometimes there are quite some developers who, for instance, develop a wind farm, and then after 3 or 4 years, when they can show the production data and the profits, they sell it. It is typically bought by pension funds. They might be Canadian, Australian, American, or by Chinese state companies. We think it would be good if we were also able together to take these opportunities and then to offer them to the local people. So this is another problem that sometimes is solved by members, is when you start, when you need the seed capital for the first projects. So for instance, Boa Energia in Portugal a few years ago, they got a loan from two cooperatives, a Flemish one and the Spanish one. It was a loan and it came back with an interest once they raised the money from the local people. Ecopower was helped by Ecopower with giving them a bank guarantee so they could buy an amount of green electricity from the state monopolist. So I told you about this European fund. We are trying to get this operational now. It's a problem of people spending some time on it, and actually the ones who created it, they don't have the financial need for the fund. It's the others, the starting ones and the growing ones who for which the fund could be beneficial. So yeah, we will put someone on it now. We decided, and yeah, so we hope this will play a role in the future. I told you that collaborations with local authorities is important. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, where we concentrate on affordable and clean energy and sustainable cities and communities. A lot of European cities joined the Covenant of Mayors, which is a program of Europe. They set targets, but actually, especially the smaller cities and especially the rural municipalities, they lack expertise. There's no one in the administration who has this as his competence and who has time for it. And also the funds are lacking. So that's where we as citizen energy cooperatives could come in. We think we are natural allies of the local authorities. And we see that there are schemes in Europe, like in Scotland and the Netherlands, where this is where the growth of the community energy is supported, and then it grows. In the Netherlands now, in the past decade, they grew from about 30 energy cooperatives to more than 500. So given the right circumstances, the right supporting framework, citizens will take this chance, and it's needed so that the energy transition will succeed. Also in Belgium, in Wallonia, the government, they gave the advice that half of the projects should be owned by the citizens or the local councils. And that's how we in Belgium, we are putting pressure on the region of the Flemish region to do the same. And about 10% of the municipalities already took a decision that in their municipalities, the sharing of the projects 50-50 should be the case. It has no legal strength, but it put pressure on the higher level to take a decision like was done in the Netherlands. And the European Commission, the Parliament, and also the Council now, actually these new directives, they're called Clean Energy for All Europeans. And it's for the first time they talk about us as citizens and not as consumers. And this is important in a democracy, that you treat the people who vote in a democracy, that you treat them not as a consumer, but as a citizen. So collaboration with the local authorities, that's important. So we call it not public-private collaborations, but public community ownership, or we could also work together with the private developers. Then we're talking about private community ownership of the production facilities. Again, the example of Ecopower in the city of Eeklo is the last wind turbine we built. We shared it with a smaller local energy cooperative, Volterra. They got 25% of the wind turbine. And the city of Eeklo also took up Ecopower shares for 25% for this wind turbine, in order to offer these shares to people with the budget meter who have problems paying their bills. And this allows them to get rid of this budget meter, which paradoxically gives them more expensive electricity than the Ecopower tariff. So another example in the German-speaking part of Belgium, where 2 municipalities teamed up with Ecopower and the local energy cooperative to build 5 or 6 wind turbines. Part of them will be owned by the municipality and part by the cooperatives. So this is an example of a private community ownership model. Our member one of our members in the UK, Energy for All, they teamed up with a private developer, and which is an Italian developer, Falk Renewables. And so they develop projects, and Energy for All creates a energy cooperative that owns part of the wind turbines in this case. So we will see also in the future more and more of these collaborations. Another example, the city of Leuven, 100,000 inhabitants, university city. They saw that in theory, everything was ready for the energy transition, but the investments didn't come. So they teamed up with Ecopower, and we're their strategic partner in the energy transition. And we are mobilizing the citizens and their money to invest in renewables and energy efficiency. This is an ongoing work. We are also looking at European existing programs like the ELENA system. We teamed up with the Catholic schools in Flanders, together with the other energy cooperatives. And so we are now their partner in putting solar panels on the roofs of schools. And this is another example of Energy for All, where they teamed up with the city of Edinburgh in Scotland to put solar panels on the public roofs. So I finished with some advice. What can local authorities do? They should become part of our movement. They should recognize the role the energy cooperatives can play in tomorrow's energy system, and they can give us visibility and emphasize the benefits. And they should consider citizen participation when public tenders are organized, for instance, for PV on public roofs. The government, of course, they should support. They now have to support. They have to create an enabling framework. That's something they have to do according to the new directives. And so this means they have to adopt specific measures so that energy cooperatives in Romania can step up and start and grow. And we made a transposition guidance document where we give member states advice on how this could be done. What a government must not do is what happens in Greece for the moment, where they sent riot police to stop people protesting against wind turbines. So on a Greek island, it can happen that someone starts building a wind turbine and the local municipality and the local citizens, they never heard about it. So permits there are given in Athens, and no one knows about it on the islands. So this is a recipe for failure of the energy transition. You should involve, actually, municipalities and their citizens should be designing their own transition plan. Of course, they must take part of the responsibility. They must do part of the work, But what is important is that the profits stay locally, and this is a guarantee for the success of the energy transition. Yeah. So it's a unique chance. We shouldn't leave to the big companies because they will try. Europe now offers us a piece of the cake, but this piece of the cake is interesting for also for the big players, and so we should not let this chance be taken away. Well, that was my presentation. It was already more than an hour.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dirk. It was really interesting. I would like to ask the participants if they have further questions. If not, I would like to ask you very brief. In this environment now with all this COVID pandemic, how do you see the market? I know that, for example, in Romania, the prices decreased sharply. Is this a threat to the cooperatives? Is this a threat to the smaller associations of people producing and selling energy? How do you see this challenge?
Well, yeah, we are also let's say Northwest Europe. In weekends when it's windy and sunny, we have negative prices. This means you get big players in the industry. They get money to consume electricity, for instance. For us as Ecopower, the effect is that we are no longer the cheapest on the market because we produce electricity and we sell it to our members. So if we reduce the price, maybe we'll make losses. And also we can't react. We don't react to prices going down and up. So normally we're cheaper, but now we're more expensive than suppliers who work with daily prices or weekly. So yeah, it has an effect. Some people, we lost some clients, some customers, they stay a member, of course. They have to stay a member for 6 years. But does this hurt us? No, not really. We have had problems with suppliers of wind turbines that one went bankrupt, and our wind turbine was already ready to be sent to us. But then this was stopped by curators, and we had to buy the parts ourselves in Portugal and Poland and Germany and bring it together and build it together. And other wind turbine manufacturers are also, of course, they stopped working for a few months. So yeah, there are some problems. Some projects are delayed. Also getting a building permit. So the authorities prolonged the period that you could complain or, So there are some effects, but let's say people still buy electricity. They still need electricity even more because they were at home.
Mm-hmm.
There are other cooperatives in other sectors who have bigger problems.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Adrian, do you have other questions?
No, for the moment, no, but it was a really interesting talk.
As a conclusion, Dirk, maybe give us a message for us, the first Romanian cooperative. I know that you were alongside us from the very beginning, and thank you for that, for your support. We became members of REScoop, and this means a lot for us. And thank you for on behalf of our colleagues for your support. A short message from your part from REScoop.
I'll give you an advice that also reflects a bit of my nature. Be stubborn like a donkey. Yeah, you will have to change legislation, and it may take years. You will have to change maybe the market, and it may take some years. But our story is an ethical story, and who is against us is not a good person. So continue and be stubborn. It won't be easy all the time, but we have a very good story. And in Europe, at the European Commission, the European Parliament, there are hardly any people who oppose us, let's say publicly at least. So.
Great. Thank you so much. And hope to see you soon, maybe in Romania, to have a beer.
Next year, our General Assembly, let's hope it's in Copenhagen.
Okay.
And our members there, they are doing big effort. We get the full support of the city of Copenhagen. And let's hope we meet. It's not in April next year. Let's hope some of you or can
Let's
come.
hope. Yes.
Yep.
It would
That
be
would be
great.
amazing.
Thank you very much, Dirk.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.